Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the fourth in the series of the Invictus Games Foundation Conversations, which brings us together to share the Invictus spirit, to activate the incredible network of people across all the participating nations and beyond in support of each other. This fourth conversation will continue to give real effect to the Invictus Games Foundation's work that goes well beyond the Invictus Games themselves and seeks to improve lives through sports recovery and adventurous challenge, and to build an active support network that continues to serve and thrive in today's complex and uncertain world. I'm David Richmond, and I will facilitate the conversation today. I've been involved with the Invictus Games and the Foundation in various capacities since 2014, and it's a privilege to be with you again today. We really have a great program for you this afternoon with expert speakers keen to engage you in their subjects and to answer your questions. So please ask lots of questions. Please pose them via the question and answer function, which you will see as a button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And when you do, could you please also just include your name, your position, i.e. whether you're a competitor or what your job is on the team, and the nation you represent. There's also a chat function. Some of you have been using that already. That's great to see. And please use that to introduce yourself to others in the audience. And during the course of the program, share your thoughts on the discussion topics we're covering today. Let's take full advantage of these buttons to engage with the speakers and with each other, because today really is all about the conversation. So please don't hesitate to engage. We really do want to hear your thoughts and your views. There'll also be a couple of online polls. One of them has been up already, and I hope you've managed to take part. And we'd like you to participate in them during the program. So please do look out for them and please do take part. I'll be supported behind the scenes by a great team. Sam and Hannah will keep the technology working behind the scenes. And when we get to the panel session at the end, they will help sift through the questions that you send in. During the panels, I will put as many of the questions I can to the panel members. And any we don't manage to answer today, we will save and provide written answers to you over the coming days and weeks. In terms of what you should see on the screen, you will see either me or the speaker, or me, or the speaker and the slides. You may occasionally also just see a slide. You won't see yourself or anybody else in the audience, but don't worry about that. Please be assured that you are here, as it were, and we will be able to read any questions that you put into the question and answer function, or any thoughts that you put on via the chat. The conversation you will see is also being recorded, and you will be able to access that recording via the Invictus Games Foundation website in the coming days. I think that's probably enough housekeeping, so let's move on. And it's now my pleasure to introduce Dominic Reed. Dominic is the CEO of the Invictus Games Foundation and has been involved with the Games and the Foundation since 2014. And has been CEO of the Invictus Games Foundation since it was created. Dominic, a very big welcome. It's always great to see you. The floor is now yours.
David, thank you very much, and thank you for hosting this. David, as you've heard, has been involved right from the start in a lot of capacities. It's great to be able to welcome everybody to this fourth edition of the conversation. I've been looking at the participants joining up on and the comments on the chat, and it's fantastic to have so many friends and members of the broader Invictus family joining us. Over 125 people registered to listen to this today, which is fantastic. So I'd like to start with everybody who's contributing to this, all our panelists and our presenters, but I'd particularly like to thank our sponsors who make this possible. So Ascot Rehab, ISPS Handa, and of course the Fisher House Foundation, without whom we wouldn't be able to do this good work. So thank you very much indeed for your support. As I think you probably know, we at the Foundation are now dividing our work into three pillars: inspire, improve, and influence. Inspire is the work that we do around the Games, and the Games, as you know, really is the lightning rod of what we do. It's the beacon that everybody's drawn to, and we build the Games and we use it to inspire recovery and to demonstrate the resilience of our community. The work around improve, which is what we're going to dig into today, is to improve people's lives through sport recovery, but also through adventurous endeavour, and to build that community, build a community that continues to serve the cohort that we look after. And then we come to influence, which is where we share best practice and where we begin to seek to influence research. And we've had a degree of good success with that. We had a conference just before lockdown, hosted by the Royal Society, and it was our aspiration always that new work and new research would spring from this. And I have to say that I'm delighted that we at the foundation, in collaboration with Blind Veterans UK and the Oxford University team, have put in a joint bid on a study to link pain with a circadian rhythm. So I just want to read, if I may, a quotation from Professor Russell Foster. We propose bringing together world-leading experts to tackle the question of how biological rhythms and pain influence each other. Understanding this relationship will reveal new ways in which pain is regulated, which can be used to develop new treatments. It will also help patients and carers, that's healthcare workers and family, to predict when pain flares might occur and develop better ways to manage them. Finding the best time to take pain treatments can also improve the effectiveness of current drugs. And that's a proposal that's currently in with the Medical Research Council and hopefully going to be funded by them very soon. So it's an indication of the way in which we can all come together and look at things with a different perspective. We can break out of the silos that we're all in, and we can all contribute together. So thank you all very much for joining. Thank you, those of you who are contributing to the presentations today. Please do engage through the chat, do log your questions, and do stay engaged. But thank you very much indeed. And David, I'm going to hand back to you to take us forward. Thanks very much indeed.
Dominic, thank you. Thank you for your introduction. Before we move on, actually, I'll let you know the results of the first poll. So the first poll which popped up really asked where you all you guys come from. And for your own information, 47% of you are team staff, 17% of you are competitors, 7% are sponsors, and 29% of you are supporters. So that's the mixture of backgrounds of individuals we have joining us today. And that's great to see. So you're all very, very welcome. We're now going to move on and enjoy some short video messages from the Invictus Games 2021 participating nations. So please sit back and enjoy them now.
G'day from Down Under. Well, it's certainly been an interesting and challenging year. Team Australia is continuing to prepare for Invictus Games next year, despite the lockdowns and the different restrictions in place across Australia.
I am continually impressed with the resilience and innovation displayed by the team as we navigate this often stressful and uncertain environment. We are looking forward to taking part in next year's games in whatever format they are delivered in. I want to thank the organisers for their perseverance in continuing to plan for the games during this difficult time. See you soon!
Due to the COVID-19 restrictions, we have developed new and innovative ways to continue our training and stay connected. I've participated in virtual cycling and running activities with other members of the team and competitors from other nations. This gave us a goal to work towards and allowed people to support one another by cheering each other on.
I've been keeping busy with loads of training for wheelchair basketball and rugby, as well as doing 2 sessions a week in the gym focusing on strength and conditioning for seated shot put and discus. I've also been putting in a lot of hard work on the indoor rower. I've even been able to get my wife involved with the training, and she has become a really great training partner.
It's been great for both Steve and I to be able to exercise together and keep each other motivated. He's been doing a lot of hard work in preparation for the games, and it's really given us both something to work towards.
Hello everybody. Here in Belgium it's very difficult at the moment to train. Our athletes have to train individually. So we hope in the end of October to organize a team building with all the athletes to see us together for the first time since COVID, since March. And so it's not easy to have connection or physical connection with the team, but we hope that the situation will be better and better. But at the moment, the government asked to limit the contact with the person who they are not in your family, and so it's very difficult. But our athletes stay. The motivation is there, and we hope now to prepare 2021 in the best condition, and to be at the top in June 2021 in The Hague. See you soon.
Je m'appelle caporal retraité Marc Fortier. Je participerai à l'aviron, la natation, le basketball en fauteuil roulant.
I am Captain Colleen Kellywood. I will be participating in rowing, swimming, and sitting volleyball.
Je suis le caporal retraité Daniel Avon. Je participerai à la dynamophilie, le vélo adapté à main, ainsi que le rugby en fauteuil roulant.
I am Sailor Second Class Darryl Lane, who will be participating in rowing, archery, wheelchair basketball.
I am Master Corporal Samantha Wilcox. I will be participating in cycling, archery, and wheelchair basketball.
The last few months have led us all to re-examine many things, but we will come back stronger and ready to face the challenges of the future.
Things may be different right now, but we are still hard at work, training every day, getting ready for our chance to show you what we can do.
Nous avons tous dû nous adapter cette année, mais personne ne peut nous arrêter. Il n'y a aucun doute que nous serons prêts à concourir lorsque le temps viendra.
L'adversité mène à des changements incroyables.
We adapt, we overcome, we soldier on, we are Invictus.
Hi there, it's got good in Denmark. We can go to the gym, the fitness. Everything is open, the pools, archery. People can bike. We have our restrictions, but everything is open, and that's cool. For me, this lockdown came. I was pretty pissed, but I refused to go down and back to where I was before the Invictus last year. I go buy some kettlebells and stuff and make the whole gym, doing walking, archery. Found a guy where I could go shoot in his garden. That was pretty awesome. I keep me going on the lockdown. As this June, everything is open, and I'm back at the pool, back at the gym, back at the archery field with the guys. It's pretty good.
Hi guys, I have a fantastic story to share with you all. 4 of the Danish competitors have positively left our program, and this is the first time that any competitors in Denmark have left the program before participating in the games. 2 of the guys we consider fully rehabilitated, and the other 2, they have all achieved the goals that they had set up for their participation. This of course left out open spaces, and we then offered 3 of the guys that were not selected for the Hague to re-enter, and 2 of the guys, they chose to re-enter the program. And this made sense because of their life situations and because the content of our personal development program would positively benefit to their lives as they are now. Yes, isn't that just great?
I am Buba Lumashvili, Head of Social Issues and Psychological Support Department within the Ministry of Defense of Georgia. On behalf of my ministry, I would like to express our sincere gratitude toward the organizers of these very important games. The information you are periodically sharing with us is comprehensive as well as productive for our future plannings. COVID-19 lockdown period has not been easy for any of us. Unfortunately, we have the relatively rising numbers of infected people. However, strict regulations are not in action so far. These cases still remain low, and fortunately, we have positive numbers of recovered patients. Our government is doing its very best to keep the situation under control. Wearing the face masks and keeping the social distance is the mandatory requirement. Considering the unpredictable future of the COVID-19, it's extremely important to enhance resilience skills, which will undoubtedly positively influence on ordinary people's daily life activities. With this purpose, we initiated a project for the Ministry of Defense personnel to learn and discuss about the methods of resilience. Moreover, especially for this course, we enroll Wounded Warriors as a co-facilitators. Wounded Warriors were sharing their own and personal experience how to deal with the challenges and how to overcome any kind of restrictions that life is offering to us. As a result, it became very productive for every single participant of above-mentioned training. Georgian Wounded Warrior team has recently renewed the training and they are ready to participate in your game in 2021. I can reassure you that every single member of our Wounded Warrior team will be in a good shape, and we are expecting for them to bring the best results from you. Also, our Wounded Warrior team cooperated with the non-governmental organizations and participated in activities like summer camp for persons with disabilities and veterans, sport events, paracycling marathons, bowling, paragliding, yacht, etc. The Ministry of Defense is ready to cooperate in the future with you and also with World Health Organization to accept the offered steps and regulations. Looking forward to see you in 2021. Stay safe.
Hello, I'm Master Sergeant Naif Adebach. I'm staff of the Invictus Games Team Germany. I have the pleasure to explain how our team is dealing with the COVID situation. We will use the additional time for some training camps. As a highlight, we still had a training camp for cyclists in summer. We will also have some training camps and a second weekend for the families and friends. Take care and see you in The Hague.
Hi friends, I'm the Senior Chief Petty Officer Andrea Quarta. I have joined in the Navy in 1993. In 2007, I had an accident. My life changed very much after my spinal cord injury. It was not easy to change my point of view on life, but I didn't lose the desire to live my life in the best way possible. After the initial struggle to adapt to my new life and to find the best solution for me and my family too, I discovered the power of sport. Today, I love to go out by my handbag or shoot some arrows. In June 2021, I'll be in Netherlands for the next Invictus Games. I'm motivated to give my best for the Invictus Foundation, but in particular for my nation, especially after this unbelievable pandemic. We have to stay at home for 70 days during the Italian lockdown. It was hard for everyone, but we can't lose the hope to restart from where we stopped. Also, for this reason, I would like to give my own personal message for all the people in the world. Never, never give up. Stay safe, friends, and see you soon.
Greetings to you all from Amman, Jordan. My name is Mirad Ra'ad Zaid Al Hussein, and I'm the chairperson of the Hashemite Commission for Disabled Soldiers in Jordan. And I've had the honor of chairing the commission for over 20 years now. And it has truly been the greatest honor of my life, serving our servicemen and women. At the onset, I would like to take the opportunity of relaying to you all the best wishes of His Majesty King Abdullah II of Jordan, who is himself a staunch supporter of all issues related to soldiers, and in particular issues related to those with disabilities. I would also like to take the chance to thank Prince Harry for establishing the Invictus Games and for doing all that he does for servicemen and women with disabilities around the globe. In addition, I would very much like to thank and salute the Invictus Games organizing committee for the incredible job that it has been doing. Bravo to you all. Regarding our participation, the experience has been truly remarkable. We took part in Orlando, in Toronto, in Sydney, and our service men and women enjoyed the games beyond all measure. It enabled them to engage and to interact with people from all over the world and to compete in a sport that they loved. It also opened their eyes and allowed them to see the world from a totally different perspective, and to be able to compare and contrast notes, to revisit their old assumptions, and to motivate themselves to succeed in other avenues of life. So on behalf of all soldiers with disabilities in Jordan, I would like to wish the next hosts of the Invictus Games, the Kingdom of the Netherlands, all the very best of luck. COVID-19 naturally has thrown a spanner into the works, but even so, I'm sure the games in The Hague are going to be absolutely tremendous. So in the meantime, everybody keep safe and healthy, and bye for now. All the best. Thank you so much.
Kia ora, I'm Andrea and I am Kiwi. When the Invictus Games were postponed, I was at a pity party for one. Worst party I've ever been to. It all changed for me at the Team New Zealand Reset Camp. It helped me change my mindset and accept the new normal. My trainer reworked my program and I joined the Invictus community in some virtual events. But the key has been my teammates. Helping keep others on track and joining in with their training programs has really benefited me. One team member lives in Cairns, Australia, so we are clocking up training kilometres to visit him virtually. That is what keeps me going.
Hi, I'm Hannah Lawton, Team Manager for Team UK. Team UK have remained positive through the UK's lockdown, and as COVID-19 restrictions remain, they are now following a virtual programme that will enable competitors to continue their sports recovery journey towards The Hague 2021 within the safety of their own home. Competitors have been invited to join regular sessions with the Team UK coaches, enabling them to access adaptive sport training alongside their peers once again. This will not only support competitors with their physical fitness, but also their mental health and social well-being. Training as a team again will be a huge boost for morale, recreating the sense of camaraderie and belonging, which is so crucial to their Invictus journey. We're all looking forward to getting back to face-to-face training camps when it's safe to do so, and are excited to see what the Invictus Games The Hague have in store for us in 2021.
Hello everybody, hello from Team Ukraine. It's a great pleasure seeing you all again. I'm very happy to be able to share our progress as a team with you today. As Invictus team, not only we continue training for the games next year, but we are continue being part of a West community, pushing the boundaries of what's possible for our heavily injured veterans. One of such events was conquering Mount Hoverla, the highest mountain in Ukraine, on a wheelchair. Similarly, our Invictus team member was the first Ukrainian veteran on a wheelchair to conquer a London Marathon, held this year virtually. We were honored to participate in other international virtual events such as British indoor rowing competition and United States Wounded Warrior archery and shooting competition. Despite COVID-19, we were able to host Invictus Team Ukraine's first wheelchair basketball camp, which was a true inspiration. The biggest lesson from these past 3 months was that we are truly unconquered, truly resilient community which manages to thrive despite the difficulties of the world pandemic.
Team US is very lucky that we have a great coaching staff that's not only extremely knowledgeable, but very approachable.
I've been attending rowing Zoom trainings, cycling using Zwift, and participating in virtual competition.
Being part of Team US has kept me motivated by not only allowing myself to be inspired, but allowing me to inspire others to just become better.
Having training and accountability partners have kept me motivated for the last few months.
I mean, anytime you put on the red, white, and blue, it just spark something in you that just makes you want to become the best possible version of yourself.
Thank you to everyone involved in producing those videos, which remind us all that the Invictus Games has brought together a wonderful community and a powerful network of nations, competitors, friends and families who really do embody the Invictus spirit and have the potential to inspire individuals and communities around the world with their resilience, commitment to leading purposeful lives, and to continue to serve their communities and their nations. It's now time, of course, to turn to the first session, which will explore how the Invictus Games Foundation continues to improve lives well beyond the Games. The Games is, of course, a great catalyst for recovery and has in this way alone energized and focused the recovery journeys of many competitors since 2014. But the Invictus Games Foundation also works actively in the gap between games to continue that momentum. And we will look forward now to hearing about some of that work. The session will be led by David Wiseman. David joined the Invictus Games Foundation in 2020 as Director of Grants and Programs, having previously worked for the Royal Foundation. He served in the British Army as an infantryman with operational tours of both Iraq and Afghanistan, during which time he was wounded in action, being shot in the chest during a firefight in Helmand. This injury ended David's military career, but opened a new chapter in his life, which he has dedicated both professionally and personally to supporting veterans. David was part of the original executive team for the inaugural Invictus Games in 2014. He was the UK team captain for the Invictus Games in Orlando in 2016, and also competed in 2017, and is proud of winning a total of 14 medals. Show off. He has also recently completed the London Marathon, albeit while having to cover the distance alone around a wet and windy Yorkshire, without the help and support of the crowds of spectators that would normally line the London route. David, welcome. It really is great to see you, and the floor is now yours.
Thanks very much, David, for that very warm introduction. I'm very pleased to say it wasn't actually a wet and windy Yorkshire for the marathon last weekend. The rain seemed to have on every single inch of England except for Yorkshire last Sunday. And you know what they say, the sun does indeed shine on the righteous. But over the next 45 minutes or so, I will be introducing some of the activity that we are developing in the Invictus Games Foundation that will exist beyond the Games. You'll be glad to hear I will be introducing some guests that are helping to contribute to these developments. So it won't just be me, my face and my voice for the next 3/4 of an hour, which I'm sure will be a relief. But before I introduce our guests to join the conversation, I'll just give you a quick overview of why we are looking beyond the Games. Because the Games certainly do remain the most high-profile epitome of sports recovery. But we realise and we understand that they will only ever be for a relatively small number of people, obviously the participants themselves and of course their friends and family. Our intention is to offer and support a range of activities and opportunities for members of the Invictus community through which they can contribute to their personal development outside of Games time. Under the improve pillar that Dominic introduced earlier, we will support, we'll provide and direct those from the Invictus community, those wounded, injured and sick, or wounded, injured and ill personnel and veterans from around the world. We'll support, provide and direct them to initiatives, to programs and opportunities that assist in their regaining a sense of purpose, to their re-engaging with and contributing to their communities, and that will contribute to reinforcing that Invictus spirit that we all know and love through international collaboration and comradeship. This is Invictus, so of course there will be a strong association with sport and sporting challenges, but the development will not be purely restricted to this avenue alone. In fact, by joining us here today at the conversation, we are hoping that you will note and indeed feel the benefits of our ambitions to bring people together in the spirit of collaboration and in the sharing of knowledge with friends around the world. Beyond the Games, activities will allow for greater participation across a spectrum of accessibility, allowing for more people to access and spread the Invictus spirit across the world, whilst developing and maintaining comradeship forged through sporting endeavour. By increasing activity beyond the Games, the Invictus Games Foundation will both increase and broaden its impact by creating and supporting more opportunities for our community across the world to benefit from what I call the first, second, and third order effects that result from engagement in sports recovery. What do I mean by first, second, and third order effects? Roughly, the first order effects are those that are felt immediately by being involved in sport. That uplift in recovery, that uplift in fitness, and those immediate benefits you get from being back involved in a team. Those second order effects are the things that I refer to, the things that sometimes happen in the fringes of being involved in sport, or being involved in a team, or being brought together into a positive team environment. There might be qualifications associated with that sport, or perhaps opportunities that arise for employment or personal development. And what I mean by third order effects, those that affect other people beyond the individual, including the family, the immediate community, or sometimes even wider society. So that's why we are looking to develop activity beyond the Games. And over the next half an hour, I will introduce some guests who will help to explain what we are doing. So we've looked at why, now we're going to look at what we're doing right now. And then I'll finish by giving a sneaky peek preview of what's coming just over the horizon. So that's the introduction of the next session. In the next portion of this section, it will be my pleasure to introduce Michaela Richards, my colleague. Michaela, she heads up an incredible initiative called We Are Invictus. I won't steal her thunder by giving too much away, but essentially it is a closed social network, digital social network, through which the Invictus Games community from around the world can come together to learn about and share opportunities. I'll bring Mickey on in just a sec, but we've got a short 1.5 minute, 2-minute video that will just explain what it's all about.
I continue to hear amazing stories of families coming together over online platforms, but please look out for those that have gone quiet or that are no longer visible on the chat sites.
Your family, your mates, and everybody here. We can do it!
for playing that video. As I say, it's my absolute pleasure to introduce Mickey Richards. Mickey, we just saw a quick video there that was released earlier on this year, explaining a little bit about what We Are Invictus is about. Have you got anything more to add? Tell people what they can expect to find if they log on to We Are Invictus.
So we started this in November last year as a virtual platform for wounded, injured, sick globally to stay in touch with each other, connect, share experiences, and look at different opportunities, whether that was on a national platform or international, as we've heard from some of the stories earlier.
That's great. And you said it starts in November. How many people are on the platform now?
We've currently got just over 1,200 wounded, injured, sick on there from 21 different countries.
And did you recognise anyone in the video earlier on from the team videos?
I actually didn't, but it was really, really lovely to hear how many of the guys and girls have engaged in opportunities that we've put on We Are Invictus. I sit behind a laptop talking to everybody, so to actually see those faces come to life was really quite humbling for me.
That's incredible. That's incredible. So who can use this platform then?
So it's open to all wounded, injured, sick, as long as you're injured within service or as a direct consequence of service. You don't have to have competed in the games. You don't have to have trialled in the games. As long as you fit that criteria, you're eligible to join.
That's really interesting. So that's something that sometimes people get confused on, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's something I do really want to stress, because all members of the wounded, injured, sick community, you will know people who haven't done a games, and I don't want them to feel like this isn't an avenue for them to take on opportunities. With the virtual London Marathon, just shy of 2 weeks ago, we had a number of non-competitors, non-trialists take part in that, and the feedback we've had and how it's helped their recovery has been really great.
Cool. So what does the We Are Invictus app offer that, say, I don't know, Facebook doesn't, or something like that?
It's just for wounded, injured, sick, which is a nice draw, because you're with your own. You can share knowledge, experiences, ask for advice. Also, the opportunities are targeted. So when you join, you can filter what opportunities you'd like to see. So there is sport for recovery, there's employment opportunities, there's volunteering, there's adventurous challenge. So you see what you want to see, and you can engage within your own nation or internationally on an Invictus board as well. And it's within a safe, secure environment too.
That's amazing. So it's not just you posting the content, it's the community can interact as well.
Absolutely. So again, this isn't just sport for recovery. We've got conversations happening at the moment where people are looking to start a virtual online music band, and I think there's a couple of nations getting involved with that. So it's all really diverse stuff, but it's peer-to-peer led. So Invictus Games Foundation will post opportunities, but again, members of the community are also able to as well and engage as much or as little as they want.
So we might have to start up an Invictus music label.
Maybe, yeah.
So that sounds great. So how can people access this platform? It sounds great. How can people get involved?
So there's two ways to get involved. You can either do it on a laptop or a tablet by going to www.weareinvictus.co.uk, or alternatively, you can download the We Are Invictus app, which is available on Apple and Android.
That's great. So basically, wherever you get your apps from, type it into the bar and you'll find it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can't get much easier than that. And the registration process, what does that look like?
It'll ask you a number of questions, whether you're serving, whether you're veteran, if you're medically discharged, retired. You may need to go through a verification process if you're not a an Invictus Games competitor, which is a simple process. Upload a document, and then you're in as soon as you're verified, and that's wiped out of the system on verification.
Cool. And what sort of impact is it having so far in terms of numbers and people and connections? How successful has it been?
Really successful. So we've engaged directly over 750 wounded, injured, sick this year with online activity. Just on the 4th of October, we did the virtual London Marathon with 58 wounded, injured, sick from 13 different nations. We have our Zwift social ride every Sunday. Every month we do a online running challenge. You can run it, you can walk it, you can wheel it, which is really, really popular with different nations as well. So yeah, it's been really good to see the wounded, injured, sick community come together with all these challenges. And also, actually, before I forget, we are rowing from Sydney to The Hague. So there's another challenge going on there as well.
I'll pick up on that in a minute, but
yeah,
to pick up on that stat then, Mickey, that is actually, that's fantastic. So 750 individuals have made connections to take part in opportunities that have been presented on We Are Invictus. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yes.
That's amazing. That's great. But I guess one of the challenges at the minute is the fact that it's in English, right? So the language. So can you tell me what sort of changes are afoot to make it much more accessible to our friends around the world?
So the Invictus Games Foundation know that it's only accessible at the moment to those in English, and thank you to half of the team managers for being that conduit in between us and the wounded, injured, sick within their community for these opportunities. So at the moment we are working very hard in translating the app to 25 different languages in order that any wounded, injured, sick will be able to not be restricted by the language they speak. So that should be coming into effect at the end of this month. So look out for that as well.
Any other changes ahead that we should be looking out for?
I do sleep, I promise, sometimes. The other major change that we're making for We Are Invictus is that we're going to have Invictus champions for each nation, whereby there will be a point of contact for the wounded, injured, sick community in each nation, because they're the subject matter expert for their nation. What each nation needs is different. So by having a host of volunteers in each nation, we'll be able to draw out what opportunities and what's needed within each nation as well.
That's incredible. And I have seen Melanie Poole in the audience coming up on the screen there, and I have to say, a lot of those developments are with thanks to support from the Armed Forces Covenant Fund Trust. So thank you for support from that, which has facilitated those developments. Mickey, thank you very much. Have you got anything else to say before we bring on our next guests?
No, thank you very much, everyone, for listening.
Thanks, Mickey. Catch you later. Our next subject is about Powered by Invictus, and Mickey brought up a couple of subjects there as a nice little segue into this section. Obviously, the COVID crisis has impacted everyone around the world. We've all felt it, and it's changed the way we're living, not just now, but I think it will change the way we live into the future as well. Clearly, for everybody on this call, it's had a huge impact with regards specifically to the Invictus Games and postponement of the games into next year. And as we heard from some of the competitors and members of the community in those great videos in the intro, that really impacted a great deal. For myself, having competed at 3 different games, if I had been told that the games had been postponed, I know that would have seriously affected me personally, having put so much time and effort and energy into warming up for the games and coming together as a team. So I really do empathise with our teams around the world. We did our best at the Invictus Games Foundation in order to generate activity within this area of development, in order that these competitors and could come together in some form of in some teams with a sporting focus, in order to come together and help keep that Invictus spirit alive, both to build and maintain physical and, of course, mental fitness throughout this period, when it would have been so much easier to maybe sit on the sofa and watch another box set. These guys and girls came together from around the world to engage in a number of very cool activities. Since the start of lockdown, since the start of the pandemic, the Invictus Games Foundation has supported 17 different active esports activities. Again, you heard a few of them in the videos. People talking about the British Indoor Rowing Championships. They weren't just for Britain. We got everyone involved. We heard about the virtual marathon last weekend, and a number of other different initiatives. There's a few which are ongoing, and Mickey brought them up. I'd really like to encourage people to check out the row, the active esports row we're doing at the minute, collectively trying to row 22 million meters from Sydney to The Hague. You can go on. We'll put a link. We'll put a link up after this, and you can see sort of the collective rowing boat moving across the Indian Ocean. We're about a quarter of the way across the Indian Ocean as we speak. Please come join the collective crew and get us to The Hague in time for next year. But our next guests, they're going to tell us about another initiative, an incredible initiative that these two guys head up, really. There was a bit of coordination in the start from the Invictus Games Foundation, but Zed and Andy have seriously picked up the baton and are the team leaders for what's going on. Every single Sunday, these guys give up their time, give up their energy to pull a team together and do a community ride on a platform called Zwift. And it's my pleasure to introduce Zed Pitts over in the States, and Andy Perrin over here in the UK. Good afternoon, or good morning, Zed.
Good morning.
How are you guys?
So far, so good. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
So for the uninitiated, or perhaps for those like me who are allergic to bicycles, Andy, can you explain what Zwift is, please?
Yeah, so Zwift is a virtual training platform for cycling and rowing. Sorry, not rowing quite yet, but it's cycling and running, but soon to be rowing, I'm led to believe. It's online, interactive. It's allows you to train, allows you to race, allows you to socialize. It just converts whatever efforts you're doing if you're obviously in terms of cycling on your bike into the virtual world, really. It's been around for probably about maybe 5 or 6 years. I've been on it since the beginning when I used to race, and it was my winter training tool. So I've been on it quite a while, and it's just developed massively over the last few years, but more, I would say exponentially so, if that's the right word, since the lockdown period, when suddenly everybody found they couldn't go and do exercise outside and they wanted to do it inside. So suddenly all around about March, April time, you couldn't get hold of a turbo trainer, an exercise bike. Zwift, just their numbers just rapidly grew, and they've really picked up the baton as well, and increased the amount of things you can do, what you can do, all the different activities, and run it from there. So it's amazing, yeah.
So Andy, you mentioned like a turbo trainer and an exercise bike. What do you need to get started? And is it expensive? Is it hard to get into?
It's no, I wouldn't have said it is expensive. You need a subscription from Zwift. That's a monthly fee, depending on where you are in the world. You can start off with a very basic setup of any old bike, pretty much. a turbo trainer, which you just attach your bike to, and it has a sort of a resistance on it that you can maybe adjust manually. And then you need a couple of sensors so that Zwift knows exactly what you're doing on your bike. So it can pick up your speed, cadence, and your heart rate to start with. From there, you can obviously go up to, you can get smart turbos that you literally react to the undulations on the Zwift training program. You can use watt bikes in gyms. I've even been to a hotel where I had my laptop and I sort of connected it to the watt bike in the gym in the hotel and was able to go Zwifting. So you can do it in a lot of different ways. Running, I'm not an expert on the running side of things, but I know that you just need a few sensors like heart rate and like a pedometer type sensor, and you can go, or you can connect it to a running machine in a gym or your personal one. So it's accessible, actually.
So you mentioned your laptop there, Andy. What do you actually see on the screen? What do you see?
Yeah, so again, you can use a laptop, which I know Zed does. I personally use like Apple products, so I can even use a phone. I can literally run it off just connect my phone through Bluetooth to the various sensors, and I could literally see it on my phone. It's not great, but I can connect that to a TV. So like options are pretty much endless, really. I know Zed, who probably confirmed this, he uses a laptop and then a big projector, so he goes widescreen on it.
So what do you see on your projector, Zed? What is it you're looking at?
So of course, when you log on to the Zwift world and you click ride, you are warped into like this virtual world of cycling where you see like all the colors, balloons, all types of roads that mimic what's the real routes of maybe Tour de France or some kind of epic climb like Alpe du Zwift is after. Andy, correct me if I'm wrong. Can you give me the right term for Alpe du Zwift?
Zed's right. You can ride in a completely made up virtual world, which they called Watopia, which has all the balloons and all this sort of stuff. But they've essentially marked out real courses, so you can go and ride essentially Alpe du Zwift, which is Alpe d'Huez in France, as pretty much an exact replica. Even Ventoux now, which is a huge one. And obviously Zed will probably say you can also go and ride in London, Richmond, Innsbruck, France, Paris.
Right. And so with the projector, I set it up myself, but every Zwifter out there have their own setup. So for me, I wanted the more immersive setup. So that's why I have that projector, but you don't have to have that. You can just have the standard laptop, or you can use your cell phone, and the cell phone shows the screen and you can hook it up to your handlebars and watch the screen, watch your avatar. And my avatar is set up customized to me. It looks like me for the most part. So that's another advantage to Zwift. You can actually see yourself, so to speak, in your craft, in your adaptive sports.
So you can recognize Andy when he's cycling next to you?
Pretty much. His avatar looks kind of like him. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So it's clear, cycling's been a big sport in Invictus since the very beginning. It's one of the most popular sports year on year. That's clearly translated to the Zwifters and the Zwift community, because you guys are sort of seeing 50, 90 people every week.
Oh, wow.
It's got bigger actually. We nearly hit 200 the last couple of weeks on a weekend, on a weekly ride. I think when the weather turns, we get more people indoors at the moment. So yeah. I've just heard rude comments appearing about me in the chat. I don't like that. Andy, yes.
All that rude comment there by Andy Shuttleworth. I'm choosing to ignore it.
Yeah, be nice about him as well.
So Zed, this is an incredible community that you're getting. It's growing and growing and growing. What do you think they're getting out of it? Why is the community growing? Why do they keep coming back?
I think it's the social aspect of Zwift that allows people to become more motivated to stay in their adaptive sports, specifically cycling, because that's what we're doing here. But because we have different avenues and different approaches or different tools that the Zwifters or veterans can use to stay in contact on and off the bike, I think that's the reason why they continue to join us every Sunday for these Invictus Games rides. So for Andy and I, for example, like if I'm feeling down, like if I feel like Andy, today I'm just not feeling mentally there as far as like getting through the week or getting to my bike, because I do have a day job. Andy is like, oh, you know, he gives me some words of encouragement or says, oh, I know I've been there before. And so when he gives me those words of encouragement, I'm able to just say, okay, I'm not alone in this fight. So therefore, I can lean on his shoulder if I need him, and I can keep myself going. And not only that, like you can find other people that go through similar injuries, or they're dealing with a disease that might be similar to yours, and or PTSD. And since Andy and I's our conditions are very similar, I can definitely lean on him for advice as far as like nutrition and things of that nature, recovery, when it comes to my adaptive sport. So because of that aspect, that social aspect, you can find someone that's similar to you, they come back.
That's great to hear. So it sounds like you built a real community where there's a lot of trust, there's a lot of comradeship, and that concentration of individuals with similar backstories is not just reassuring, it's also providing practical support.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's moved so much for us now. I mean, this all started when, you know, I spoke to, I've been in touch with Zed for a number of years since the games. And then we were like, I was like, why don't you come and join us on Zwift? I know you're doing a different training program. And then we were like, oh, let's ride together. So we were doing like a Saturday ride. And so that's the thing. It's nothing to do with necessarily the situation when we're locked down. I can't ride with Zed on a daily basis or on a weekly basis. So we were riding together, and then it was like, well, if this works for us, just two people in different places on the planet, let's see if it works for others. So, you know, we took it further, like the Invictus were like really keen, but what it's doing for us, I mean, the way the Sunday ride specifically is we're actually sharing the message about Invictus, and we are Invictus, and how we look at how it supports veterans and all that to a wider community, because the majority of the riders that come on our ride are not veterans, have no real connection to the military, and yet we really get lovely feedback at the end of it saying, oh, love what you do, or, you know, really supportive of veterans, really interested in what the Invictus Foundation does for veterans, you know. So we were always, it's become a bit of an advertising board for the charity as a wider audience as well. So I mean, and it just goes so much further. Like we've now taken it to the point where you can just have little meetup rides. You can organize these yourself. They can be like a banded rides where everybody sticks together. It doesn't matter how fast everybody's going. You can all go the same pace, and it just becomes like a little chat ride. We use an app where we can communicate all the time. So, you know, you can have endless number of people on an open chat radio sort of system. So you can have an hour ride where it flies by because you're just having a conversation.
Yeah, through your microphone, don't you, and your headphone?
Yeah, we just use an app called Discord, and you just use that as essentially as if you're having a group chat phone call, really. And we're all there for the same reasons. You get people there, they want to exercise. You get people there that maybe aren't getting out and about as much as they want to, or, you know, there's a lot of people with isolation issues, whether we're in a lockdown or not. So it's been great. And I just one thing I want to say, I put a link to a YouTube video that myself and Andy did, Shuttleworth did, and we explained how you set it up, the whole different systems for Zwift. That might be more useful for anybody that's interested in how much it costs and what equipment you need, because we can't really explain all that in this session. So there's a YouTube video in the chat if anybody's interested.
That's great. Thank you very much, guys. Look, you know, Andy Shuttleworth was a bit rude about your avatar earlier, Andy, but he's given a regain, and he said that these two guys have been absolute lifesavers over the summer, and the Zwift rides have become an essential part of my week. It's clear it's clear to everybody that you two guys are giving back so much to this community, and we thank you for your leadership. Thank you very much. We'll put the details on the link about how people can get involved. But thank you very much for all you do, and thank you very much for joining this afternoon.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I've just got just a few more minutes before I hand back to David Richmond, and I just wanted to give you a sneak peek over the horizon about something which is coming in next year. It's not fully formed, so I haven't got all the answers, but I just wanted to share with you something that's coming. That's pretty exciting. I'm pretty excited about it anyway. Earlier on this year, we successfully transferred the Endeavour Fund from the Royal Foundation into the Invictus Games Foundation, with the intention of taking all the incredible knowledge and ambition that the Endeavour Fund had for supporting the ambitions of wounded, injured and sick service personnel and veterans through sporting and adventurous challenges, and internationalizing that, opening that up to the international community. I'm pleased to announce that we will be doing this next year. There will be a grant program from the Invictus Games Foundation, coordinated by the Invictus Games Foundation. I can give you a little bit more information about what that's going to look like. It will support the ambitions of wounded, injured and sick personnel and veterans from around the world to use sport and adventurous challenge as part of their recovery and their onward rehabilitation. And this is going to be across 3 different kinds of grants. The first is going to be an expedition grant, and there's going to be very few of these every year. We, to be completely transparent, we've got quite a modest grant sum. So there will perhaps only be 1 or 2 expeditions a year, but the aim of these is to bring men and women together from around the world into one team, doing one challenge, all working together to complete a crunchy expedition challenge. The second type of grant will be a team grant. The idea here is with smaller sums of money to support activity with teams in their home nations. So if there's a team that wants to come together, or someone wants to bring a team together to compete in the Paris Marathon next year or the Berlin Marathon next year, and they want to bring a team together and they need some funding to bring that team together, this will support that sporting and adventurous challenge within that home nation. And the third type of grant will be a development grant. And again, there will be very few of these, maybe 1 or 2 per year. And these will be available to nations whereby either sports recovery is an emerging concept, a developing concept, or where funds are not available in that nation to support sports recovery. So it will be grassroots development grants to help support emerging programs within these nations. These grants, as I say, more detail to follow, but I just wanted to give you a sneak preview to say that this is coming. It's coming next year. We're very excited about it, and we will liaise with the team managers in due course with more detail. I'm running 2 minutes over, so with the fear of David Richmond's wrath breathing down my neck, I will thank you very much for your time this afternoon and your attention, and I'll hand you back over to David.
David, Mickey, Andy, Zed, thank you very much for a really great real insight into the work of the Invictus Games Foundation beyond the Games, and of some of the opportunities and the support network essentially that have been open to competitors from all the participating nations. I'm sure this will generate lots of questions for the panel session later today, so thank you all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is actually a really good time to remind you about the chat function, where we'd love to hear your thoughts and views, and I see it's being used quite a lot, but please carry on with all of that. let's have your views. Encourage you to ask questions via the question and answer session button, though, which is also at the bottom of your screens. We've had 2 or 3 of those on there, and we will come to all of them at the panel session, which is towards the end of the program. When you do ask your question, please don't forget to introduce yourself with your name, your nation, and the role that you fill or the post that you hold. And then that helps us identify where we're sending the answer back to. Thank you for all of that. We now need to move on to session 2. We will shift our focus onto sharing best practice through influencing research. Each nation is learning lessons all of the time about how to do this better, while also using research to provide evidence to shape future policy services. Our ability to identify and share best practice is the heart of the Invictus network. So we look forward enormously to hearing from our speakers this afternoon. Our first speaker for this session is Casey Kelly. Casey is the Deputy Director of the Military Service Initiative at the George W. Bush Presidential Center. In this role, Casey oversees and manages policy, operational and programmatic efforts on veterans' health and well-being, including the Veteran Wellness Alliance. She manages strategic efforts to promote the partnerships, collaboration and alignment among organizations that are so crucial to fostering the health and well-being of our post-9/11 veterans. Prior to this, Casey served as the National Director of Public-Private Partnerships in the US Department of Veterans Affairs Office for Suicide Prevention, where she was responsible for developing a comprehensive and integrated public health approach to prevent suicide amongst the 14 million veterans in the United States who are not engaged in Veterans Administration healthcare. Throughout a 15-year career with the Veterans Administration, she led several innovative programs to serve more veterans and their families through strategic partnerships within government and crucially across both the public and the private sectors. Casey, welcome. We look forward enormously to hearing from you today, and the floor is now yours.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. Can you all see my slides? So I'm delighted to be here today to share a bit about some of the work that I lead in collaboration with many healthcare experts across the United States and tremendous veteran leaders. Having worked in the space for about 20 years, I think about things differently today than I did 10 years ago. And I want you to come away from the session today knowing that people can recover from mental health challenges and go on to thrive. We know that there are effective treatments that work for many. We know also, though, that it's sometimes hard to access those effective treatments and to know where to turn for good care. But reaching out is courageous. And at the Bush Institute, we're leading a number of innovative efforts to help more veterans find effective, high quality care through our Veteran Wellness Alliance. So today I'd actually like to begin with a poll to get you thinking about those around you. So if you could answer the poll that Hannah just put up on the screen, how many peers have you seen struggling with psychological or invisible wounds? And we'll give you just a couple more seconds to respond. Okay, Hannah, can you show our results, please? Wow. So this is great. We can take down the results, Hannah. I'm not surprised by these results. Data tells us that rates for post-traumatic stress and other psychological conditions are actually higher with our OEF and OIF veteran population compared to historical rates. Research also demonstrates that while over 50% of US post-9/11 veterans have indicated having a traumatic either physical or emotional experience, only about 30 of them indicate that they're comfortable reaching out for help. So at the Bush Institute, we have identified a three-pronged strategy for addressing the barriers that are perhaps preventing our veterans in need of care from reaching out. These broadly fall into the categories of recognizing that there are challenges associated with those who've experienced traumatic events, connecting to barriers associated with connecting to a care system that works, and then actually having a healthcare system in place that is able to deliver high quality care for problems that may be unique to the veteran community. We call this the Recognize, Connect, Deliver model. Our solution is one built out of partnership. You heard Wisey and other folks talking today about the Invictus community and how much power there is in providing social support and connectedness and community. We have united 15 organizations in our Veteran Wellness Alliance that are centered and focused on the mission of connecting more veterans to effective clinical care for the invisible wounds when they need it, by leveraging these peer-to-peer networks that are also out there operating, offering community and connectedness amongst veterans across the United States. So our peer networks in the US include organizations like Team Rubicon, and the mission continues. In the UK, I might put the Casavat Club in this group of peer networks. And for my friends down in Australia, the Buddy Up program would be well aligned with the mission of our peer-to-peer networks in the United States. What is unique about this alliance is that it brings together these non-clinical peer organizations with best-in-class clinical care organizations from across the country that are treating post-traumatic stress, traumatic brain injury, depression, substance use, and so forth. And as our work with the Invictus organization expands, we are eager to learn about where there might be some opportunities to identify how we might support this model on an international basis. Ultimately, our goal is ambitious. It's to connect more veterans to the right care at the right place and the right time. So you might ask, how are we actually helping veterans recognize that they may be experiencing challenges associated with the invisible wounds or from their traumatic experiences in the past? At the core of everything we do at the Bush Institute is data. And in order to help more veterans recognize these challenges that might have resulted from their traumatic experience, we really have two big research efforts underway. One is focused on our peer networks and helping them understand how to better use survey data that they're collecting on their membership so that they can better understand what might be the well-being needs of their members. We have done this through establishing a set of 15 common questions that all are beginning to adopt and collect on their membership. This will allow us to understand who we are serving across all of our peer networks, and perhaps more importantly, who we're missing that aren't already connected to the peer community. In addition, this effort will also allow for us to be able to look at how we understand who's benefiting from what types of programs and allow us to compare apples to apples, if you will, instead of apples to oranges, when there's different data that's being collected. In addition, the second research project that we have underway is a market segmentation approach. We're using this to understand how we might better attract veterans that aren't connected to any of our organizations and promote help seeking and encourage them to join with some of our peer organizations and or our clinical care organizations. Specifically, instead of a one-size-fits-all outreach strategy that's often utilized, we have broken the veteran community down into a range of segments or personas across the help-seeking spectrum. We're doing this using large volumes of social media data. You might know someone in your network that might fall into the I'm broken category, who really probably has a hard time even leaving her house, much less figuring out where to go for effective care. Alternatively, you might know someone that's in the I'm all in category, who is volunteering for everything, trying to be a good community servant, but never really dealing with their own internal challenges and struggles. Obviously, how we think about outreach and messaging to these two types of veterans should be very different. And what's going to encourage one versus the other to reach out for help is likely going to be very, very different. I'd now like to turn to some research that we're leading in partnership with our friends at RAND to define high quality care for the invisible wounds of war. We aren't actually releasing the findings from this work for another week, but I wanted to give you a sneak peek for this group. But before we get into the definition, I'd love for you to complete our second poll. When you think about seeking healthcare and getting an appointment, what is the most important thing to you when trying to get that appointment? Please select just one. All right, Hannah, we can share the results. Experience working with a veteran military community, ability to get an appointment quickly. These are great. Okay, Hannah, we can close the poll. Consistent with what we found through our research-based and consumer-approved approach to setting the bar for high-quality care for the invisible wounds, it's more than what is the best care that is available based on our research. It's not just care that clinically has outperformed any other type of care. High-quality care includes 4 pillars. Care that's veteran-centered. You guys all sort of confirmed what we learned here in the States, that having someone aware of unique needs to the veteran community is important. Care that's accessible. That's exactly where the appointment, getting into an appointment quickly comes up. Care that is evidence-based, we know, and then care that includes outcomes monitoring. And what this is regular assessments of how the veteran is doing so that changes in treatment planning can be made along the way. I'm really thankful to have worked with Fran on this and look forward to building upon it and in the future. And finally, in order to address our connecting veterans to care barrier that I started with, and perhaps the most important activity and research that we're leading right now is testing our connection solution. In order to help more veteran peers help their buddies connect to high quality care, we are testing a tool called Check-in. Check-in has been designed as an easy button for non-clinical veteran peers who see a friend who may be struggling and in need of care beyond the peer-to-peer network support system. Any veteran can provide a few minor details to a trained expert by either making a phone call, sending an email, or pressing a few buttons on a mobile application. The check-in expert then proactively reaches out to the veteran in need and helps the veteran connect to the best program to meet their needs, to help the veteran connect to the right care, the right time, and the right place. Through Check-in, just last week, one of our own Team 43 members had a friend who was struggling. The Team 43 member sent an email to Check-in, and within 48 hours, their buddy was connected to high quality care for his post-traumatic stress in a town near him. I'm very happy to say that today, the veteran is doing much better than a week ago and continues to be on a path to recovery. As peers, you often have the critical circle of trust with your buddies. And you too have a role to play in helping more connect to effective care for the invisible wounds. Now more than ever, we must all check in on our friends. One of the things that President Bush does oh so well is to encourage people to tell their story and to reach out for help. As we close out today for this session, I would really encourage you to take a minute and to think about who in your network might need to learn more about effective care programs. And thank you for your time and all you do in support of our community around the world.
Lucy, thank you very much for a really great presentation that really zoomed in on some really relevant and challenging issues in caring for our veterans, and some great insights on some what is considered to be quality care. And I'm sure this will have generated lots of really good questions for later on at the panel session from the audience. It's now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Selina Shirizapur, who is a research scientist and assistant professor at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles. Selina is originally from Canada. She completed a master's degree in sport and exercise psychology before undertaking her PhD in health promotion, during which she specialized in physical activity for veterans with physical disabilities. She developed and led the independent research for the Toronto 2017 Invictus Games, examining the impact of the Games on competitors, their families, and of Canadians. And since Toronto, she's continued conducting research on Invictus with the Invictus Games Foundation. Her research project aims to expand our knowledge on the impact of Invictus by comparing the short and long-term psychological and social well-being of competitors and Invictus hopefuls who weren't selected for teams. Secondary aim is to explore the different practices each nation uses in delivering their Invictus programming. Ultimately, her goal is to determine how nations can provide optimal programs that best support the well-being and psychosocial recovery of service members and veterans with illness and injuries, and provide appropriate training opportunities. Selina, welcome. It's a fascinating topic. We really look forward to hearing about your research, and now over to you.
Thank you, David. I'm very excited to be here this morning. As mentioned, I'm very excited to be sharing some more interim insights from our research study. And before beginning, would like to highlight that this research would not be possible without Forces in Mind Trust's funding. They provide the funding support for this multi-year study that will allow us to determine best practices as well as develop evidence regarding the role of sport in recovery. The other piece I would just like to highlight is a big thank you. I see a lot of people attending today are our nation's staff and competitors, and none of this research would be possible without everyone's support. And all of us who are part of this research team are very, very grateful for everyone's support and insight, because none of this could happen without you. As mentioned, today I'm going to focus in on the concept of best practices and what's starting to emerge from the series of interviews that I've been doing with nation staff, visits to training camps, as well as surveys with competitors and those who tried out for the teams but weren't selected. And one of the biggest questions that comes out of the conversations with nation staff is questions around best practices in terms of situating the Invictus Games in sport recovery, because there is such a wide continuum between the concept of recovery and competitive sport. And so two models that we're starting to see emerge among the different nations are either a progression of activities or Invictus Games as one of many options. And so with the first option, where there's a progression of activities, we see competitive sport as a last step in recovery. So individuals might start in their rehab, they might continue and progress through different types of targeted rehab for their illness or injury. So for example, equine therapy. And then as they move forward in their rehabilitation and demonstrate an interest or an aptitude in sport, they would then identify the Invictus Games. And so an example here, I had the good fortune before everything shut down to visit Team France's training camp. And for example, with France, individuals would do their rehab. There's also opportunities for equine therapy. There's a nationwide adventurous training weekends where people can travel around France to engage in different types of sports or activities. And then from there, individuals who are interested in continuing in sport would identify themselves as interested in the Invictus Games or in other military sport competitions. The other model that we're seeing is Invictus Games as one of many options. And so this would be, for example, what we would see in the UK or in Canada, where individuals would self-identify as interested in the Invictus Games at any stage in recovery. So you might have individuals who are newly injured or newly diagnosed with an illness, or individuals who are a few years past that diagnosis into their rehab, but still feel that they'd have a lot of value from taking part in competitive military sport and being amongst individuals and their peers, as Casey mentioned, with illnesses and injuries. And what we really see here, and it was mentioned in the intro video from Denmark, is a lot of nations that have this approach are starting to develop, as it's called in Denmark, personal development programs. So nations are using the games and the training weekends for people to come together and really put plans and goals for how they are going to use the Invictus Games to move forward in their recovery. So there is no right approach, but it's nations identifying different options based on the size of the team, the resources available, and the culture within each country. The other question that tends to be discussed a lot is how do we build community, and particularly how do we maintain engagement in the Invictus Games community amongst people who either don't make the team or who competed in previous events and are not competing in a future games. And so the two pieces that we've identified that seem to be very prominent so far are advocacy and mentorship. So the first with advocacy, what we hear a lot from military personnel with illnesses and injuries is a desire to support the community, represent the team, and represent the nation, particularly as they move further along in their recovery. And so really simple examples of this are, for example, if there is a trials, having opportunity for t-shirts that are branded or that individuals can wear, identifying themselves as part of the group. And everyone really loves the opportunity to wear these, A, because they are identified as part of the group, but B, if they're wearing it in public, they're identifying themselves as someone that people can go up to, ask questions, and really help build knowledge in the larger public. So the other piece here that we see some nations using is identifying previous competitors or individuals who can speak on behalf of the nations with media or in events such as this conversation. Another piece that pops up a lot in building community is mentorship. And so it's great that Casey was speaking about the importance of peers beforehand. And we do see that as individuals move on in their sporting journey and in their recovery, there is often this desire to give back, which is really based within that military ethos. And so what we've seen developing are three different approaches. The first is bringing back previous competitors as part of the team and reserving a few spots for people who will come back, compete in sport, but also be there during the games, at the venues, in the hotel to answer questions and really prepare the team, not just for the sport itself, but for the actual environment and timeline of the Invictus Games. The second approach we see, and it's great to hear that this is also going to be happening through the Champions program that Michaela mentioned, but is the identification of team mentors. These are individuals that might not necessarily be attending the games, but are available to any potential competitors or once individuals make the team, to the team members as resources. So they would be present at training weekends or via text or email or phone and be able to answer questions and really discuss the nitty-gritty pieces beyond sport about how they prepared for the games or how they used the games to move forward in recovery. And then the third piece that we see, which while there is no best practice amongst these three approaches, it's one I'm particularly excited about, and I'll explain why, is bringing back former competitors as coaches for the different sports. So we have seen some nations bringing back previous competitors, and they have the opportunity to train as coaches and be a coach for one of the sports. And beyond the fact that this provides additional training and opportunities for employment for the former competitor, this is also great in the context of the larger sporting community, because what we do know is that within disability sport or adapted sports, there is a shocking lack of coaches or trainers that have disabilities themselves. And so by having individuals with illnesses and injuries, in this case, military personnel, who are trained as coaches and are able to provide mentorship, we're not only potentially benefiting the Invictus Games community, but also the sport community at large. And so beyond these best practices, these two pieces of where do we situate the Invictus Games and how do we build community, one of the questions we also had and had to adapt to with our research is what is the impact, obviously, of COVID? And in particular, what's interesting to us is, can we learn something from the fact that everyone's at home, spread out, to identify some best practices, for example, for the larger countries where individuals can't meet up all the time, or for example, for non-competitors who might not be selected for the team, but still be interested in being connected to the Invictus Games and to the nation. But starting first with some of the findings around experiences in lockdown, what we saw that was really positive is that the individuals that answered the survey saw no major change in the frequency of their communications with loved ones and teammates. So while lack of connection has been a concern, at least frequency of connection is not changing, which is great. What we've also been seeing is that individuals have been prioritizing phone, video, and text to connect with others. Individuals are really trying to take breaks from news, and that means sometimes taking breaks from social media. Where this is interesting is that while they're connecting with their teammates and their family and their friends by phone, video, and text, when asked how they were connecting with the nations, they were saying it was by text, but also by email. So there might be opportunities to actually reach out to the team members or former competitors using the methods that they're trying to prioritize right now, which might be a team video call or a team phone call or a text group, so that individuals are able to use the methods they're comfortable with and also avoid social media if that's how they're choosing to maintain their mental health at this difficult time. The other piece I wanted to highlight, especially as, for example, some nations might be looking at a rollback in certain phases or some aspect of return to lockdown, is that while about 90% of the individuals who answered the survey said they didn't have concerns around mental health care access when they were at home, there were a few individuals who did say that they were unable to access mental health care during lockdowns. And so I noticed in today's attendees, we do have some team psychologists, we have individuals who are trained in mental health. And so potentially providing competitors or individuals who haven't made the team with some resources that might be accessible during lockdown when they're home, that may be particularly valuable at this time. And the other piece that was noticed was that a lot of individuals mentioned that they either had to make changes to their physical rehabilitation or stop physical rehab during lockdown or during isolation. And so if this continues to happen, or if they're unable to start going back to their rehab over the next few months, when they return for sport and for their training, it may be valuable to do some sort of assessment of where they currently are and not try to make comparisons to where individuals were with their training in March. I want to end though on some of the really exciting and positive pieces that came out of the surveys that we've been putting out in relation to COVID. The first is that while individuals are not physically seeing their family and friends, everyone pretty much noted an increased appreciation for family and friends. We saw in some of the videos at the intro today how there might be training with spouses or with their family. And so this is providing an opportunity for us to see how family members and friends can be a part of training and can be a part of recovery and preparing for the games, and giving the essential role of family and friends within the Invictus Games themselves. This is really exciting. And finally, what I'm hoping might be a really exciting piece for all the nations is that one question we get a lot of is how do we maintain engagement and support those individuals that we aren't selected for the games? And what was really encouraging so far from our surveys is that quite a few individuals who we'd call non-competitors, so individuals who had not been selected for the team, were engaging in the Invictus Games virtual sports, such as the Zwift rides that were mentioned earlier, or the virtual rowing. And so this is really exciting because this is a practice that could continue and be accessible to those who do not make the team, but also might be an accessible way of creating community for the larger nations that have trouble connecting regularly for training camps. So our research is ongoing. So in conclusion, while we have a lot of the nations on here, our next set of surveys will go out to competitors at the end of November. But also we are really dedicated to developing these best practices. So today was a snapshot of where we are in terms of our interim findings, but we really want to move forward and develop a set of practices so that based on the goals of an organization or a nation, we can then share what are the strategies that nations have found most effective. So as part of that, we are going to be sending out a survey to nation staff around the middle of 2021, where we will ask you for your perspective on the different strategies we've identified, and also to share ones that you think we've missed, so that we can develop that guideline and that report or those trainings that would provide support in future Invictus Games, but also to any further sport organizations that might wish to develop sport recovery programming. But in sum, again, I would just like to thank all of the nations, the competitors, those that weren't selected but continue to participate in the surveys, for their ongoing support and participation, because none of this research is possible without you guys, and we very much appreciate it. So thank you very much.
Selena, thank you very much. Fascinating research project, which actually impacts on all of the Invictus nations. And it will offer some great insight and data to support the design of future programs. We're now going to move on to the final panel session, which is your chance to ask questions of the speakers. If you have questions and haven't done so already, please ask them using the Q&A function that you'll find at the bottom of the Zoom screen. And if you have thought of any thoughts or other ideas you wish to discuss, please pop them out on the chat function and we can raise them there and discuss them there. To remind you who we're going to have on the panel, we've got David Wiseman, who spoke about the work of the Invictus Games Foundation Beyond the Games, and his team of Andy Perrins and Zed Pitts, and hopefully also Mickey Richards if she manages it back in time. We also have Casey Kelly, who spoke about the work of the Veterans Wellness Alliance, and Selena, who who's just been talking about her research into designing the optimal sports programs for the WIS community. And they will all be joined by Dominic Reed, the CEO of the Invictus Games Foundation. So I'd welcome all of them back to the screen, ready for the panel session. Just give myself a second to see we're all here. Have we got Zed? There we go. There he is. We've got Andy, Dominic. Great. And I know Mickey's going to try and join us if she manages to get back in time. Let's start with, you may find, ladies and gentlemen, I asked one or two questions that may already have been answered on the chat function. And I'm going to do that only because I hope that the answers will then reach all of the audience and those who may not have noticed that they've already been answered on the other screen. The first one I was just going to ask is one that has been answered already, but I'm going to ask Wisey, can family and caregivers participate in the We Are Invictus program?
So there's a lot of activity that is open to family and friends. We've opened up a huge amount of activity that's been specifically for this. We supported a huge number of friends and family into the at-home superheroes event in the summer. Again, the rowing event, the rowing challenge from Sydney to The Hague, open to absolutely everyone, and we'd really encourage friends and family to get involved in that. So there is plenty in terms of the active esports side of things that people can get involved in, and we'd love them to get involved with that. we heard on the video with our Australian friend who was training with his wife, and we recognise the benefits of that. Specifically, the We Are Invictus app is closed to specifically to those with a history of service and wound and injury or sickness during service. So at this time, no, that is a closed group for that specific group.
Wesley, thanks. Thank you very much. I've got one for Casey, and it's from Andy. Sorry, just bear with me while I've just bring it back on my screen. Typically, I've just lost it as I started to speak. From Andy Shuttleworth, and I think Andy sets out in his question, it's taken him a long time, 17 years, to admit the psychological legacy of his service and the people around him. It took time for when he was being treated for physical injuries and felt he was in a trusting and trusted environment and non-judgmental environment, felt safe to start opening up about some of the other challenges. From some of the work you've done, Casey, do you feel there's a good way or a better way to encourage those who need help to start seeking it earlier?
So Andy, I hope you can focus on the fact that it's not that it's taken 17 years to ask for help, that you asked for help and you've recognized that you were dealing with some mental health and psychological health challenges that were preventing you from thriving, right? What we are learning is that it's oftentimes not what is said, but there is a critical piece of trust about who encourages the person to seek help. And that's why we're building this program really based on the role of the circle of trust that is established between peers who've had shared experiences. I would also put family members into that category. Sometimes family members can recognize those signs of distress sooner than others. And I think what we're doing through the Invictus Games and through the foundation to promote the mindset that mental health, psychological health is health. And although we have studied physical health and solutions for physical challenges for much longer than we have psychological health and mental health, we are starting to see a tipping point, I think, in the mental health community. And I think specifically it's because of the leadership that veterans are taking to change that conversation and to normalize the mindset of psychological health needs and solutions.
Brilliant, Casey, thank you. That's a really good. Zed, I was just going to ask you about a couple of comments about the extent to which a couple of questions around the extent to which the Invictus, the sort of fellowship and the camaraderie around the virtual sports, the esports, extends beyond Zwift. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, how, for example, if I'm off the bike and I'm feeling a little bit depressed or I'm going through some anxiety issues, there are veterans that I've come in contact with through the Zwift experience, through IGF, that I could reach out to in those times of need. So that's one of the greatest benefits for me, because a lot of times I feel like there's a social separation between civilians and veterans. So to have that social network that I can tap into outside of the sphere of preparing for the Invictus Games or something like that, I really think that's advantageous, especially in the case that Casey mentioned, mental health support. Yeah, so that's how it's benefited me beyond the games and beyond the Zwift experience that we're holding every Sunday.
Brilliant. Zed. Andy, anything to offer on the same question? Your sort of feelings around it?
Yeah, no, I think he's hit it just right. I mean, what we want to work on, what my goal is of it really is to, like, we put it out there, we run it, and we want people to run with it. So, you know, we have Andy, for example, is a really good example on his trike. He joins us on the rides. He's now getting a group together that then, you know, a like-minded group, both on the road and on virtually, that, you know, they're training together. we share ideas. What the next step for me would be ideally some form of, like I think you were talking about the champion side of things before, Wisey, is like ideally is have people that are like a point of contact, like, just so someone can find out a bit more, because a lot of people struggle with that first hurdle of knowledge or understanding about how to do something, whether it's to engage with a mental health professional or just go riding on your bike on Zwift. I mean, it's the same thing. So what we need to do next is look at like where people can find someone that can champions what they're interested in and is willing to give them the time. Because I feel like I can give, like 5 minutes of my time to get someone started or help someone with some advice on what they're doing is potentially a lifesaver, or, like is the next step in someone's journey of whatever it is they want to do. So, it works. I had a 5-minute chat with someone, a veteran, this week about trying to, how he wants to use Zwift to do a charity ride. And from there, we've now got him on coming to join us on the weekend rides and how to take it further and what you can do on it and support with the, where you can get maybe some grants, funding, how to set up your system, all that sort of thing. And that's where it goes. Just 5 minutes. I feel 5 minutes of my time can be a bit of a lifesaver for others. And I'm sure that that applies to anybody on, so it's going really well. And I think that's where we need to look at it next.
Andy, thanks very much. The Mickey, just one that came to mind. You mentioned when you were talking that there's a bit of a journey being undertaken to row to Sydney. It seems an extraordinary thing to be doing. Tell us a bit more about that, and how do people follow it or join it or track its progress?
Absolutely. So I'm pretty sure you've caught me out a little bit, that the link has been put in the comments by Sam. So that can be distributed around again, I believe. So this was something to kind of during lockdown that we thought to engage wounded, injured, sick and the community. You don't have to be a member of the WIS community to take part in this ride. In this row, sorry. So hopefully the link will come back up now on how to get involved, and all you need is your rower. You log your miles as and when you do them, and there's a tracker that shows where they are. Wisey will be able to tell you just about where people are at the moment with the row, I believe. Where are we in the world now, Wisey?
Yeah, thanks, Mickey. It's a good job I've got those stats just in there, isn't it? Yeah, we are. We're trying to row 22 million meters, 22 million meters, which is from Sydney to The Hague. If we look behind the boat behind us, Australia is very far. It's out of sight. We're hundreds and hundreds of miles off that corner of Perth, and we're maybe 20% across the Indian Ocean.
Brilliant. Okay, thanks very much, guys. Selena, you talked a lot about your research and how it's also looking into the sort of friends and family aspects too. And in the work that you've been doing, have you picked up any best practice that's emerging looking at friends and family programs?
Definitely, thank you. What we've been seeing from some of the family and friends is that they want opportunities to be connected before they arrive at the Invictus Games, particularly as the family and friends from their nations might be their support group until they start meeting everyone else. And so what we've seen some of the nations doing, and I believe, for example, New Zealand has done this, is having a dinner where family and friends can attend during one of the training camps. This way they can meet everyone and also get a sneak peek at what the training looks like to gain a better understanding of what's happening in their family and friend or in the competitor's recovery. And then, for example, also opening trials or training camps open for family and friends to attend. So we saw in Sheffield at the trials that family and friends were attending and cheering on the potential competitors during the events. So opportunities for them to connect early so that they understand what's happening in recovery, what time is being spent and where it's going, and then so that they can also connect with the other family and friends that will be their support network when they arrive at the games.
Great. And Dominic, friends and family have been a sort of important part of the game since the first games in 2014. Can you tell us a little bit about the sort of thinking that went into that and what the future looks like in terms of thinking around the family, friends and family aspects?
Well, friends and family have always been absolutely central to everything we do. And that was something that we have had the benefit of support from Fisher House Foundation, who led really with friends and family elements around the Warrior Games. So we've had really good support from Tish Stropes and others over there on that. It's clear that this is all about community. I mean, everything we've heard is about binding the community together, creating space for people to interact, whether it's competitively or socially, or to support one another. And friends and family are integral to that. You know, I mean, I think that's a very important thing. And I think one of the things that comes out loud and clear to me also is the notion of mentorship that Selena was referring to. I mean, it does a fantastic thing if people who are part of this group, part of this community, can actually participate in not only helping each other, but actually getting out in the world and helping others, because it demonstrates so much about what they've done, about the obstacles that they've overcome, about the way they've approached it, and I think it sends such a powerful message to people who are at the fringes, you know, people who aren't part of this particular cohort, but actually can benefit from coming into association with it. So I think that message, you know, which started very loudly in 2014, is building. I think there's still a phenomenal role to play for everybody who's involved to be, you know, to proselytize really, and to get the message out there and to involve people in the community and get themselves into a position where they can coach, mentor, be it informally or more formally.
Yeah, and activating that network, isn't it? I think that's built up over that number of years. Casey, when you were presenting, you highlighted the sort of key factors that went into a high quality care program as they affect veterans. And I wondered if what the differences are between a high quality care program for veterans and a high quality care program for non-veterans, and how our requirements differ, and whether you've seen anything in that.
Well, that's actually a really good question. And one of the things that we're excited to talk about when we released the report on October 22nd, this is the first time this work, meaning this definition for post-traumatic stress and traumatic brain injury, has been done for anyone. And so again, the way that we're positioning at Bush Institute is this is something that veterans are actually leading, that are not just going to benefit the veteran community, they're going to benefit the community overall. And I think they're actually, I am thankful that one of my collaborators screenshotted the poll response, because one of the questions I have is how that definition might vary from country to country on an international basis. And so really looking forward to diving into some more of that work. The other thing that we're going to be taking on is we've honed in for this first step on post-traumatic stress and traumatic brain injury, but obviously there are some other areas that need to be defined and the bar set so that our customers can demand it and expect it from the clinical community.
Yeah, so much more sort of patient-driven, patient-led, I guess, is where you're going with it.
Exactly.
Yeah. A question we've had from so the theme has come up a couple of times, is around those who aren't selected, and how there's a risk that, having not been selected for a national team, that they then drop off the radar slightly. Selena, in your sort of research work, what was the best practice telling you around the follow-up and the continued contact with people who are not successful in making their national teams, and maybe the impact of a failure to follow up?
Yeah, we've seen nations tackling this in different ways. So I'd say globally, what's great is that the app is now eventually going to be available in different languages. And so there's still this opportunity to connect with the Invictus Games family, even if not a competitor. But what we've seen some countries doing, I believe Jordan has done this in previous years, is inviting those that don't make the team to still attend training camps. So still providing sport opportunities. We've seen some nations during the selection process, and this is difficult depending on how many people apply, but actually provide recommendations for other types of programs or opportunities that might be available and link the individual app with these opportunities. What we've also seen, and again, it depends on the number of individuals that aren't selected, but for example, what was interesting was for Team Romania, at Sydney, the family and friends that they brought were the individuals who had not been selected. So they still had an opportunity to be part of the games, just not the competition, but they engaged in that full journey. And there were still events for them to take part in with the competitors at home. And then also we do see some nations, such as Team UK, bringing on the concept, and I believe Team Ukraine as well, of national trials. This way individuals can still work towards the goal of competition and have, on a slightly smaller scale, the opportunity to engage with everyone and have that week or weekend of competition and connection and community.
Brilliant, thanks. I think we've got time just for one more question, then we probably need to wrap up the panel session, sadly. The Wisey, you talked a bit about the programs that you can fund, the potential funding pots that people can apply for. How do they go about that? How do they go about applying for a grant?
Yeah, so that's super exciting. Really looking forward to it. What we'd be really interested in is hearing ideas, especially at this stage for those team grants. At this stage, I would ask for people's patience. It's a plan that is in formation. We'll roll it out in good order next year. But I'd really like to pick up some conversations, especially with the team managers, simply because they are the representatives with whom we've got a point of contact within each nation, so that we get a really good spread of grants around the world. And that's really sort of an intention of ours, that this is this granting program is truly international, and it reaches out to all the nations. So I'd love to have a chat with the team managers in the coming weeks. But I also anticipate within those conversations, those ladies and gentlemen might say, do you know what, we're really busy with managing the teams, and a point of contact within my nation would be X, Y, and Z. So either a suggestion or an introduction would be fantastic during those conversations, so that we can get those conversations about grants rolling.
Brilliant, Wisey, thank you very much. And I'm afraid actually that's our time is now up for the panel session. As ever, there's far more questions than there is time to answer them, and I need to draw the panel to a close. Thank you for your questions from the audience, and to the panel for your answers and your presentations. It's been a really good way to conclude the day, and it's always a shame we don't have more time at the end, but sadly we've reached time. So we now need to bring this fourth in the series of the Invictus Games Foundation Conversations to a close. It's been a really good event, and I hope that you in the audience have enjoyed it and learned something from it, and also, of course, met some old friends and re-established some contacts, which is at the heart of what these things are all about. I have to thank, of course, all our speakers and the panel guests, and of course, everybody in the audience for taking part and for giving a couple of hours of your afternoon or your day today to join us. You have asked some great questions, and as I mentioned at the start, if there are any that we didn't have time to answer today, we will do so in writing over the coming days. And I remind you that the whole event has also been recorded, and it will be accessible on the website in the days to come. I think, you know, it's fair to say that we've taken yet more steps today to give real effect to the network of people brought together by shared experiences on battlefields around the world and through competition at the Invictus Games, held since 2014. And I would urge you not to underestimate the potential power and influence this has to do good to and for each other, and to serve our communities going forwards. You truly are part of something rather special, so please don't forget that. I've really enjoyed being the host today. I look forward to seeing you all again in the future. And meantime, good luck to you all. And I'd now like just to finish off by handing over to Richard Smith, who's the Chief Operating Officer of the Invictus Games Foundation, to say the final words. Richard, over to you.
David, thank you very much indeed. It's my pleasure to bring this fourth iteration of the conversation to a close and to offer a few final comments. And I'd only really just echo what David said. I've really enjoyed it. It's been fascinating, and I've learned a huge amount, and I hope you have too. in bringing today together, we had a number of aims. One of the first ones was to bring the Invictus community together, and especially during this COVID times of the COVID environment, and to reinforce, as Dominic mentioned, this Invictus community. And it's just been great, particularly through the videos, to see so many of you and to see how you're dealing not only with the challenges, but also the potential opportunities. And that Invictus resilience and Invictus spirit is just firing on all cylinders, and that came across very strongly during the video. So thank you so much for taking the time to put those together. They're a great rallying call for all of us, and really just impress on all of us just how important what we do and how important the community is. Another aim we wanted to do today was explain the full range of the Invictus Games Foundations. And if the games are a lightning rod, we really wanted to explain those other two pillars of improve and influence, and explain what we do beyond the games and how we can make a difference for the wounded, injured and sick community, which drives us forward every day to try and make a difference to that very special community. I would commend to you, as part of David's session, the opportunities provided by the three areas he outlined. We Are Invictus, the application, all the activities there, the active esports, and those have just been tremendous. I mean, just listening to Zed and Andy, the passion with which they spoke, but it's also on the rowing, and also athletics is coming in as well. And interestingly, many of the lessons we're learning from those active esports, which we've introduced during the COVID environment, are being taken forward to The Hague, and we're in regular communication with the team in The Hague, and many of those best practices and lessons are being taken forward. So it's just been amazing. And then finally, as David said, the very exciting program of Invictus Endeavours, which will start kicking in next year, and more details to follow. Another aim, as always, is to share best practice. And looking to that third pillar of trying to influence audiences, so we can bring the best benefit to our wounded, injured and sick community. And I'm really grateful to Casey and Selena for showing us how, as we get engaged in research, how we can use those opportunities to bring benefit and influence others in bringing the best benefit for our very special Invictus community. Because if we can establish best practice and really effective sports recovery programs and effective care for that community around all the nations, across our 20 nations in the international community, that's a prize which is really worth doing. And just to round off, if today was beyond the games, I was really struck by that little clip in the We Are Invictus video. When the games stop, we keep going. And if I could leave you with one message of what we're doing, that is it. The games is that lightning rod, but we want to make a difference throughout the journey for our wounded, injured and sick. And finally, a few thanks, just to reiterate the thanks to our sponsors, to our speakers. Thank you so much for all that you do in giving back to the community we support so strongly. David, a very big thank you to you for moderating again and pulling it all together as such an effective moderator. And then finally to you for taking part. And if I could just leave you with two look forwards, we hope the next iteration of this conversation, which thank you so much for your support, will be in the new year. We'd very much welcome your suggestions, but we're looking potentially at themes of resilience and employment for the wounded, injured and sick community, which I hope you'll find of real interest. And then finally, it's been mentioned a couple of times, but I'd just like to commend, as part of the work of The Hague, the team in The Hague, who are working so hard to bring together the Invictus Games in The Hague next year between the 29th of May and the 5th of June. They're working really hard. They're being really imaginative and creative, and they will produce a great event in The Hague, which will be worthwhile and really impactful, and will provide a great crescendo going forward. So finally, thank you very much indeed. Great to see you, and see you again soon. Bye.